Alright guys, this is going to be a video to start to go over how we're going to be shading our Chuck Close inspired drawings. I'm going to go over with you two different ways that you could go about shading these in. Whatever works for you is going to be completely fine. On this project, we're just experimenting with value, so there's really going to be no right or wrong way to do it, except for bringing out different tones, so darks and lights, some contrast. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I actually made a darker grid line here so that you can actually see the grid, because I'm going to show you how you can work with a little viewfinder in order to separate the squares easier and go in and shade each individual section. This also will help you draw out some of the image if you're having a little bit of trouble with that as well. So everyone has their drawings numbered. I'm going to go ahead in at 6 and 4, and I am just going to line this up here. And I'm going to do the very same thing at 6 and 4 on my drawing. So I cut these to exactly an inch. We will have some in class, and you could see lining this up just makes it one singular square to focus on. We're going to want to start going in with some of our darker pencils. So as these go up in number, we're going to start out with a 3B. That's a little bit backwards. 3B. And then we're going to gradually build as we get darker tones. I'm going to start off using the square method, and then I'm going to spend the rest of this video just kind of drawing so you can watch as I progress through the drawing a variety of different shading techniques. So just looking at this one little square here, I want to focus on all the different dark and light tones. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to look first around the eye. So it goes about halfway through, and I'm going to just scooch that up a little bit so I could draw better. Looks like it goes about halfway through, and we do want to have fairly light lines when we're sketching everything in. A lot of you I noticed in class, you want to really focus on looking how much space the white of the eye actually takes up and how much is actually the eyelid underneath. So I have a really light part where my waterline is. And I'm going to go in and I'm just going to start to show that a little bit. Focusing on the square now. I have a whole bunch of dark shadow coming in around my eye. Now you don't want to go in and use the tip of the pencil for this. That's going to be for more detail work. But rather I'm going to go in and I'm going to use the side, and I'm using a technique called scumbling, which is essentially an organized scribble. And I'm going to slowly build up that value that I see around my eye, trying to mimic everything that I see in that one individual square. So this is a really easy way to start drawing. I then see that I have a darker line forming through here. So I'm going to just define that just a little bit, not too much. And then I have my eyelid slowly coming in here. So I'm going to go in and define that too. Not too dark, just a little bit. So I'm going to continue to go in, and we're just focusing, like I said, on this one little area. I'm also going to focus going underneath my eye here. And we'll build these up as you guys go along. We will eventually maybe go in and like smudge up some of the areas a little bit, but for now I just want you to go in and work on the overall shading. So I'm really starting to fill that in around my eye. You'll notice a lot of times the darkest parts in the photograph are usually the eyes, the hair, eyebrows, and lips. Sometimes also nostrils or clothing, depending on what your portrait is or what your figure is wearing. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to just define my waterline going through here. And you can also go in with your eraser. You'll notice that I have a little bit of lightness through here. So I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna just take a little bit of that out. So you guys wanna make sure that you have erasers on hand. These little guys are good for taking out some parts. However, you will wanna go in with a big eraser if you need to really take a lot of graphite out. So I'm gonna go in and just take some of that out. And I'm gonna start building up my eye again. Now, I can also see that even though this is the dark part through here, the whole entire face is made up of a variety of values. Where this eyebrow starts to meet in, I'm gonna build this up a little bit. And just a little tiny piece of my eyebrow fits into this area. Now for the eyes themselves, if you have any small highlights on them, you're gonna wanna make sure to go ahead and block those out. So I have two really light little tones on here, and I wanna be able to shade around those. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill in my pupil, even though I'm going into the next square. That's okay, because we wanna make sure that we get the whole thing in. And I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna add this other little light part. After that, I could go ahead in and start getting the darker value into the eye, just making sure that you're going around those highlighted spots. So your pupil should always be the darkest. Even if you can't see it so much in your picture, you are gonna wanna make sure that you go ahead in and you define that. So you could see just this one little square. It does look kind of strange because it's just this one little area, but it really starts to line up with the part that I blocked off. I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna continue just a really light shading going through here. Just to kind of cover my skin tone. Then I'm gonna go in with a 5B pencil and I'm gonna start to really darken up some of this area. The top of my eye is pretty dark, so I'm gonna go in and get that nice and rich. Another thing is you want to be careful with eyelashes. I know that it's really common, you know, drawing eyelashes, and especially if it's your first time working on a portrait, so go ahead and want to just go in and, you know, kind of fleck them out. But you really want to go in and you want to notice what you see. Now my eyelashes are fairly short, so I'm just going to kind of go in, focus on some of those little points I see below my waterline. Same thing goes for above. I have just a few little lashes. Some of you have more glamorous celebrities you're working on and they have glorious lashes. However, I do not. So I'm not going to draw those in. I'm also going to go in and I'm going to start just adding in that line for my eyelid. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this and I'm just going to move it one section over. And you can gradually do this with your whole entire drawing if that's how you feel comfortable. We will eventually be erasing the grid. Now this eye looks kind of funny because I didn't get to that section yet, but I will go back. So when I go ahead and I just move this over one, I have part of my hair forming. With hair, you'll notice that there is, and I'll hold this up a little bit, there is a highlight on the top of my head where the light was hitting. We're going to want to be able to go ahead and fill that in. With your viewfinder, like I said, I'm going to line it up directly next to it. I'm going to start to draw in my hair. But rather than just going in and scribbling, I want to really pay attention to strands of my hair. So I can see that in the one above it, my bangs start coming in. But this comes in starting right on the side of my face. And because my hair is fairly dark, I'm going to go in with either a 5B or a 6B pencil. And I'm just gonna start filling in some little strands like that. And you wanna keep in mind the directional lines you're going in. So my hair is kind of going over like that. So you don't wanna just go in and scribble up and down, even though it does look like a solid color. We wanna really kind of work on building some texture in here. And as you go ahead and do this, your pencils will dull out. And it's really, really important that you are working with sharp pencils when doing this. So this is gonna eventually be really, really dark. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my 6B pencil for this. And you wanna make sure that it's just lining up really nicely with the face. That's what's gonna pop out, you know, the different textures and everything like that in your face versus the darkness of hair around the figure. Now, some of you have curly hair in your photos, and that could go in with a technique called scumbling, which is a small scribble as well. And I could help you on, you know, something that has more of a wave going on to it as well. So even though this section was just essentially filled in with a dark square, it starts to build up the hair. I'm gonna go in next, and I'm just gonna move it one below. And I have my squares drawn out just in this one section, fairly dark, so you can see them. So I'm gonna hold my viewfinder up there. You always wanna make sure it lines up with the numbers. So now I am at 5 and 6. And I'm gonna start to go in and, you know, define what I see there. So my hair is carrying over. And for the most part, it seemed like a lot of you guys had really good sketches going on. If you are struggling with getting your outline in, that's okay. This might be an easier technique for you to use, just using the viewfinder to get that in. I like to use this as more of a shading tool, but you know, really there's no right or wrong way to draw. Now from here, I really just have a little bit of value built up in my cheek. So I'm gonna start to just kind of fill that in. I'm gonna go from the edges here because when you imagine the edge of your cheek, it's almost coming in as you would like be like applying maybe like a blush or something like that. If you are familiar with makeup or seeing someone apply makeup or anything like that. And starting to fill in my face, and you'll notice it is meeting up with, you know, some of the nose shading that I had in. So it's just gonna be a little bit. And once you go in with your viewfinder and get all your values for the most part in, we could go ahead and, you know, in the end, go ahead and adjust things and match them up a little bit better. Although with a lot of the Chuck Close drawings, you know, from a distance, they made a little bit more sense than they did up close. So I just started to fill in this one little area through here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over one more square because I want to show you guys, you know, how we're going to start to really build up underneath the eye. It looks like actually I could add in a little bit through here. And you'll notice that, especially here, I started out all of the darkness that's encompassing your eyes that are set back, that's what's going to be creating your nose. So rather than just going in and drawing lines for a nose, you're going to actually want to go in and use value to build that up. When you look at a person's face, it doesn't have, you know, a perfect outline of a nose. It's made up, you know, of three-dimensional forms. So that's what we're trying to replicate in this. I'm going to slowly bring in the edge here of my eye. That's going to kind of line up with that. And then I'm going to move it one over. And you could see that I have in here a dark shadow forming under my eye. So it's just this little section right here. And you want to try to map it out the best you can. That's why I have you guys doing 1-to-1 grid drawing, so 1 inch to 1 inch. It's a really good way to start to learn how to draw and map things out. So that starts to meet up there. Going into this part of my eye. So now we are moving it up, and I'm gonna be at 4 and 5. And I'm just gonna finish my eye, part of my eyebrow, and then I'm just gonna spend the rest of this video drawing. While you guys are drawing in class, you know, feel free to watch and reference it, you know, while I'm around offering advice, helping you guys out. So I'm seeing a lot of really, really rich dark tones through here. I am using a 6B pencil. If you feel comfortable maybe starting a little bit lighter and then building your way up, that's okay too. And I'm gonna go forming in with the eye. So it's gonna go in a directional form like this, rather than just up and down, because our face goes out with our cheeks. So I'm gonna start filling that under there. Start going in a little bit more. There's a lot of dark shades above my eye here. And this eventually does lead up to my eyebrow, which is going to be much darker, but that's not until the very next square. I'm going to go in and I'm going to, you know, start to finish some of the darkness on this side of my eye, even though we want to keep that pupil part a little bit darker. And I'm going to continue over to my eyelid, which usually ends up forming into the rest of your eye. That's going to be that little crease where your eyes open and close. So just going in, and this is not only shaping my nose, but it's pushing my eyes back as well. So just using that viewfinder, I got this far on my drawing. I think that's going to be so successful for you guys, and I think it's going to really help a lot of you out. I'm going to recommend that we go ahead and we use this technique today. I'm just going to go ahead in and I'm just going to continue drawing, and we'll go from there. We'll set this in. Below. And as long as you make sure you're lining this up, you're really not going to have that many issues, because this carries directly down. And I do kind of have some straggly ends coming out. You know, you're always going to have a little bit of frizz or something like that. So that's going to be in my next ones. And then try to go over these two blocks and bring them together a little bit. I'm going to go in now and I'm going to work my way up to my bang area. And I'm going to start drawing in my eyebrow and my bangs. So with the eyebrow, it's going to be the same thing as drawing hair. You want to do, you know, some really small strokes and really looking at your image to find the different directional lines that you have. I'm going to go in and we're going to start assessing this, how it's going to carry over. And it's kind of sweeping across. If you need to scooch that out of the way a little bit, you can. But I'm still working with these strokes. Now they're just going in that direction. So let's go ahead and let's finish my hair on that side. I got half an eyebrow going on there. this one's pretty much just mostly dark. And then I have some ends. So this one still goes over for a little bit, and then it kind of starts arching over with the rest of my hair. And I'm just gonna leave some of it a little bit lighter on the end because it doesn't really line up all the way perfectly with the outline I drew out, because I don't have perfect hair, and that is okay. Now you could see that there's a small little spot in there, so just go ahead in and blend it together. And we could go in and we can make this hair a little bit darker too. And I'm just gonna kind of carry that out a little bit to make some little straggly hairs. They're not in the next square, but I think that just will add a little bit to it to make it look more natural. So now I'm just gonna draw, and feel free to watch. We're gonna move up. And when you're drawing, one thing I always like to say is pay attention to what you see, not what you think you see. And that's something when I was a younger artist that I always struggled with, because you have an idea in your mind of, you know, what everything kind of looks like because we're witnessing it firsthand. But once you go ahead and you want to draw it, it becomes a little bit different. Especially, you know, through here. I got a little smudge for the Cupid's bow, so I'm going to go ahead and take out a little bit of that. And the Cupid's bow is just this small little area under your nose that leads to your lips. And we'll take that part out there. And using the viewfinder is really helpful because you could go in and adjust things a lot easier. I'm gonna just move my nose actually a little bit from when I was drawing it last time. And the nice thing about starting out fairly light is you could always go in and erase. You're gonna notice that there's gonna be like a big highlight on my nose right there. After I'm done with all the graphite and my paper is done getting a little smudgy here and there, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna really like, you know, define that a lot more. And I know I said I wasn't gonna talk much, but you know, here I am teaching. Now for the lips, you're gonna see some really tiny lines in the lips. I'm gonna hold this up so you guys can see. Do you see like those really tiny little lines in there? We wanna go in and we wanna create those first. That's gonna be like, you know, the really defining part of when we make our lip. So I'm gonna just erase a little bit more of this. I'll maybe got a little carried away. All right, viewfinder back in place. We are at, where did that one go? Okay. We are still at 7 and 5. I lied. 6 and 5. 7 and 5. I can math. And I want to show you guys how to put in all the individual lines. I'm sorry this camera is shaking. I have a tripod hooked up to my desk at home and it's on a wire thing and it's kind of wonky. I'm going to go in and I'm going to start to slowly assess the little lines on my lips in this area. And you're going to notice that you want to go with the curve of your lip. So this way, it's going to go that direction. Over here, it's going to go in this direction. We're going to pay attention to the crease where our mouth is. And then where it goes up right here. Now this in my picture is fairly dark and you really can't see any of the creases, so I'm just going to shade it in. The reason I had it so dark is because it is one of the darkest parts on my picture, but I wanted you guys to go in and see how to develop value with those little small lines. Now that I have those small lines in here, I have a little bit of a shadow over them. So I want to make sure that they're going to be a little bit darker. This is where having a really sharp pencil comes into place. And then I'm going to start to just do a little bit of a light line underneath them. You'll notice, and I'm going to hold this up one more time. I know it's kind of hard to see. Underneath my lip is a shadow. That is really creating the end of my lip. So even though I might draw in a little bit of a line, sorry. For the most part, I'm going to work with what's underneath. So there's a really big shadow underneath the lip. And that's why, you know, they originally looked so large. Was because we didn't go in and we didn't get that little piece in. especially over here. This is gonna be, you know, the end of my lips, but I have this shadow. I'm gonna go in and just lightly, lightly press over it. Just like when we did optical illusion drawings, same exact idea. All right. I'm gonna move down. And I think when you're doing this technique, it's really good to kind of go, you know, either horizontally or vertically as you work, so that you don't get too confused. But either way, you know, I think it's okay, whatever you feel comfortable with. So I don't have, it's hard, I don't have the grid in here. Okay, that's gonna be this little section. So I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna start to fill in my hair much darker. And grab the 6B pencil for this. Go in, build up a little bit of shadow here. Take out a little bit of this for a highlight. And on this side, I think I'm gonna have to bring my chin in a little bit. But this side looks okay. So my chin ends here, and then I have a little bit of shadow underneath it. I'll go in and I'm gonna flip to this side just because I want to assess my chin a little bit here. 7 and 3. All right, that's what I thought. And you know what? This is actually okay because I could use my hair to go in and slim this down. Scooch. And you kind of see I'm really working in this direction with my hair. And pay attention to your photo, you know, they're all going to be different. But even if you're breaking up every single square into values, you're going to get something really nice. That I can promise you. Yeah, okay. I think that's working better. So I'm going to move this up now and let's see what we're working with. You could see the difference, okay? So I'm going to go ahead in and I'm going to bring my hair in more. Looks like my face comes in a little bit. And that's why, you know, drawing tools are so helpful. You know, they exist for a reason. So we'll just bring this through, connect this. So you guys can see just how much I got done already using like this little viewfinder. I'm gonna go in and just touch all this up a little bit. It's because I want to make sure that I have the accurate shape. I'll bring this in a little bit more. And like that. So I'm gonna kind of zoom in on this a little bit as I continue to draw. I am going to be using the template, but I'll keep this as the close-up. So, 2. Go ahead. My hair for this part's going over, so I'm going to want to draw directionally that way. In this particular block, there's a really strong highlight. So I'm going to start going in just little wisps, keeping it nice and light. And then I'm going to start to go in, and there's going to be some really dark parts to it, some really light parts. So I'm going in and I'm getting like the darkest strands first. And you always want to work, you know, like it looks like it's coming from the scalp, because that's how your hair is going to naturally grow, obviously. A little straggly up there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm just going to lightly, very softly, go in and fill in the rest so that you could see that highlight on my hair. So when I take this away, it's going to look real silly, but it's going to start to come together. I'm going to do the one below it now. And I am so excited for you guys to start shading today. These are going to be awesome. And this is really great because this carries over. And this one little highlight piece. And the rest starts to get really dark. And this is just going to carry into my bangs. So we went from kind of going over the top from the scalp to this swooshing in front. And I know I said I wasn't going to talk, and I'm talking all this time. And I'll probably laugh in class tomorrow that I talked the whole time. And you guys will probably be like, oh, Miss Clayton. I'm going to just move that so I could get darker. But do you see how that starts to form a really awesome highlight? Okay? We're going to blend this together. I'm just going to carry the rest over, and then I'll go ahead and I'll say quits. The highlight's really strong here because this is like the very top. So it's almost all light. So I'm going to go in just really lightly first rather than get the dark pieces because it's mostly light. And then I'm just gonna go in and fill in those few pieces, and it's pretty much like the two that carry over from the last one. I have a piece through here. And then a few kind of loose hairs that are sticking out. Nice. Now we're starting to get that highlight. We will move down. And this is what I meant by, you know, working square by square on these. A lot of times it's easier to draw out the face first so you could connect everything and have, you know, a really good layout for it. Then once you have your layout, we could go ahead and use the viewfinder. And the viewfinder is going to help you get everything super realistic. You know, like I said, I just adjusted my chin a little bit. And that's why this is a good tool. And we have Chuck Close to thank for this, because that's who we're going off of. Working with the individual squares and photorealism. And we'll carry, you know, some of it will carry over. But we're forming hair. I'm going to do the one right next to it. This is going to be the very edge of my hair. It does cut through there a little bit, so we'll just kind of put that in there. It's very light through here, just softly brushing with my pencil using a light hand. And the rest is really, really dark. I do have like a little fuzzy sticking out there. And if I had a pencil sharpener handy, I would go ahead and sharpen this right now because I can't really get that dark of a shadow. And then you always want to go over the squares and just lightly kind of blend it together. All right, so that's gonna be pretty much the tutorial. We're gonna just kind of work on these. Hopefully that you guys are working while watching this video. That is my plan. Sweeping across. This is really, really dark through here. This is the last part I'm gonna do, I promise. Or maybe the last part I talk through. Just fill that in there. And we would need a sharper pencil because this one's too dull. Okay. All right, so basics to using a grid. I'm eventually gonna wanna go in and get like these grid lines out. I know that I, you know, told you guys to make them really light. I just made them dark because it's really hard to see in the video. And now I'm gonna have to go in and fix some of this shading up, but that's okay. This is just, you know, a little demo piece. All right, so I'm gonna have a bunch of these viewfinders out tomorrow. 1 inch by 1 inch. We're going to use them to line up our grid. And I want you to really pay attention to what you see in the picture, not what you think you see. Okay?